She goes like, and Loomis is like, tell me who the fuck it is, where the fuck is she, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So many movies. So many movies. What the hell's going on? So, hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of a calm and relaxed talk about the Halloween franchise. This should be the second of 3 parts. I was going to say the second last part, but that still is legit. In this video, we're going to be talking about these films, Halloween 4, the Return of Michael Myers, and Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, or just Halloween 5, because it's not actually noted as Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers at all, only on posters. And then we're going to talk about a bit of this collection as well, which has Halloween the Curse of Michael Myers, aka Halloween 6 or Halloween 666. So yeah, this also has Halloween H2O and Resurrection, but we'll be talking about those two with the Rob Zombie films in the next and final video, because I don't know how long this will go for, it doesn't really matter. Part 1, which will be linked in the description, and, you know, at the end title card, and in the playlist and all that jazz, covers Halloween 1, 2, 3, and 2018. And yeah, I figured that was pretty good for its own video. It's probably going to be a long as shit one, but you know, I kind of wanted to tackle the ones that I had already seen, except for Halloween 2, and kind of get a nice perspective on how the franchise has changed, you know, because of course Halloween 1 was a masterwork, a big success. The second one was forced into existence by the producers, and for me, I didn't like it that much. I've still ordered the Blu-ray to come in, you know, because I'm a completionist. But at the same time, it shows how the direction of the universe has changed, because even Carpenter wanted the third film to be an anthology, so the third film was an anthology, confused the fuck out of everyone because people are stupid. And, I mean, at the same time, the advertising wasn't great and everything. There's a lot of stuff I covered in that video. But then the fourth film I covered in the video was, of course, Halloween 2018, because that is a direct sequel to Halloween. So, arguably, I could have, if I wanted to, be like, oh, let's look at the change of perspective and go with H2O. But because H2O is a direct sequel to the second one, whereas Halloween 3 is not a sequel, it is just its own thing, and Halloween 2018 is a direct sequel to the first film, it just seemed like an interesting thing to look at how they've changed the universe and, like, just trying to make these Halloween films just in general. So, yes, now we're going to talk about the trilogy that revitalized actually, not really. The duo, so Halloween 4 and 5, that revitalized the label, the brand, after the demise that was Season of the Witch. And then kind of its own resurrection with The Curse of Michael Myers, which came out like 5 to 6 years after the previous one, because this was 1988, 1989, and 1995. So, of course, you're not just getting a direct sequel to the 1989 film, but you're also getting a, hey, it's the mid-90s, we're completely shifting up how we're doing horror now, because the 90s is a weird stage for horror. Pretty much everything before Scream came out was crazy bonkers. They were just doing whatever the hell they could, and you could kind of tell. The 90s have a very familiar feel in its late years, in particular, whereas it's like the first half of the decade is just, what the hell is going on? And the second half of the decade is just kind of all the same, but it's all got the same feel to it. It's got the same look, the same texture. So, and that kind of bled into the early 2000s. Yeah, so let's get into Halloween 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 12, 18, 22, 64, 132, Spook'em-fest. I guess I'll just stay in this position here, because fuck it, that was my intro. So as I do, if you haven't seen any of these videos before, which, go watch the first Halloween one. I've done other videos for this kind of deal. We've got, what, Alien, we've got Fast and Furious, we've got Chucky, we've got Nightmare on Elm Street, we've got Child's Play, because I did Child's Play 1 and Chucky 1. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, no relation. This was a 1988 film directed by Dwight H. Little. My quote, of course, because I start with my Letterboxd reviews. You can't kill damnation, mister. My initial review was better than the second one, but which second one? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. There's a lot of question marks. All jokes aside, this wasn't a bad entry. It was subtle but nicely focused on the characters over the kills. There are some weird moments, like how Michael has a blonde-haired mask for 2 minutes, then he doesn't for the rest of the film, but, I'm curious to see where the franchise takes us in the next installment. Oh, how my optimism defeats me. Now, to be fair, pretty much I'd only heard that Halloween was brilliant, Halloween 2 was decent, maybe bad. I'd heard mixed things. Maybe it was really good, maybe it was really bad, maybe a bit in between. Halloween 3 was like, well, if you want the Michael Myers one, then it's terrible, but if you want something actually really fucking good, then it's actually really fucking good. And I agree, it's really fucking good. And of course, when I saw Halloween 2018, there wasn't really the need to watch reviews, because I was like, I'm just going to watch this movie on a scary night by myself. Yeah, so that's how my impact of horror is, because no one else watches horror films with me. That's great. But of course, when you get the whole franchise of 4, 5, 6, H2O, and Resurrection, and then the Rob Zombie ones, which they all have their own kind of appeal to them, For me, I'd always heard different things, like 4, 5, and 6 were terrible, but they were also cult classics, especially 4 and 6. H2O was pretty decent, but nothing, fantastical, but a good kind of revitalization of what it was trying to be. And Resurrection is just abysmal. I haven't seen Resurrection yet. I'm interested. I have seen H2O before, but I will rewatch it for this review. And then, of course, the Rob Zombie films, which I'd heard were terrible unless you like Rob Zombie films, and I like Rob Zombie films to some degree. I did a whole review of Sherry Moon Zombie because I watched all the Rob Zombie films, and of course she's in all of them, so it was a great excuse to do that. So yes, I was dreading this film, Halloween 4, but I went in with an open mind, and I think that's a good idea when it comes to horror slasher sequels. So, my full review. We start in an abandoned, Halloween-afflicted area, haunting and nicely shot as the credits roll. Suddenly the film becomes Halloween 4, but that's okay, I went in with an open mind and got a good experience out of it. And this is also one that I've heard is terrible. Again, the reviews, it's just, I don't know what the hell people want from a Halloween film. Stick with the first one, go with the third one, go with 2018. Why would you watch anything else, to be honest, really? Unless you really like Halloween 2. Then just watch the first 3, unless you really, really don't like the third one because it doesn't have Michael Myers. It's really hard to point that card, I don't know. So let's talk about the plot. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just do a generic outline. So Michael escapes from another institution to come after his niece, Jamie, who lives with his foster parents and foster sister. I put in question marks. They're step-parents and step-sister. I don't exactly know how it all works because they don't really explain it. They only mention the step part in the next film, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Laurie is, of course, dead because probably Jamie Lee Curtis didn't want to return for the film because she'd already done the first 2, and other reasons, like she was becoming a successful actress to some degree, and maybe she preferred not being on the bad side of John Carpenter, the fog and stuff. Anyway, so her character had passed away 11 months prior to the, date of the film, which was, I think it's 1988 that this film is actually set in, but it's set on Halloween. I think, just Halloween. So it's Jamie Lee Curtis's character of Laurie and her husband, who you never see any images of or whatever, or the only images you see are images of Laurie as a teenager, so aka the pictures from the 1978 film. Just in case the audience didn't know who the hell Jamie Lee Curtis was. But this is 10 years later after the first one, which I think is kind of an interesting thing to note, because again, the third film killed the franchise, but then they revitalized it with this, because it's like, let's bring back Michael Myers, because I'm a producer, I want my money. The producers are the real bad guys when you think about it. Let's not talk about Halloween 6 yet. So yeah, it's pretty simply Michael stalks his niece kind of artistically in the background, he just he hardly appears, he doesn't kill many people until kind of the end of the film, and he's just in the shadows for the most part. It's kind of nice, I kind of want to touch more on that. He literally hardly shows up in the film. You see him, once, which may have been an illusion of Loomis, and he's in all these rags, but of course he's still in He went to a mechanic, killed the mechanic, took his clothes because you've got to have Michael Myers in his iconic mechanic outfit because apparently that's a weird thing. Let's be honest, that's a fucking weird thing. Like, at least Jason had some kind of difference, you know? Like, he has a fucking potato sack on his head, and in the next film, he decides, you know what? I'm gonna wear this hockey mask, and it's actually cool. I mean, to be fair, I'm not against the costume for Michael Myers, but it's kind of absurd. Like, the lengths that he goes to get this costume of, gotta kill a mechanic, take his costume, but not get any blood in it, maybe? Make sure it's a good fit. I don't know, I guess mechanics are like 6'4" or whatever the fuck. That's like its own thing. And then he's covered in bandages, which is kind of a cool look, and I feel like, because apparently he can see under that, I feel like that'd be a great look for him as a character, you know? It's Michael Myers, and maybe in the latter half of the film, he finds his old mask or something, you know? Maybe someone, like Loomis has it or some shit like that, and he gets it, and he puts it on. That would have been cool. And it's like, oh my god, he's finally Michael Myers again, you know? As if you really care by the end of the film, hey, it's finally Michael Myers. Or now he's really killer mode, you know? It's like, oh shit, now we really got to be scared, he's back. But instead, no, he just goes to a Halloween store and steals a Halloween mask, which is the Michael Myers mask, which for some reason they're selling at a store. This is in the same fucking town that 10 years ago he'd butchered like 18 teenagers plus a few adults, and it's like, I'm sorry, you're just selling that at the store? Okay, then sure, if that's your excuse, movie, go for it. But yeah, for the most part, he kind of like in the first film, which obviously they're trying to go a lot of what happened in the first film. Everyone's having their regular Halloween shit. Loomis is chasing after Michael, and Michael is just kind of in the backgrounds doing things. He doesn't really pop up to haunt Jamie too often. It's more or less she kind of just has these visions or dreams and shit, and sees him. Sometimes she actually, because again, the first time she sees him, he's in a dream, and as if she knew what he actually looked like. So I don't know where she got that imagery from, but it's actually him in the mask that they use in the movie. So I guess if you want to don't count continuity, like maybe the movie is trying to imply it's the same mask. It isn't. They very obviously state that it's not the same mask. He fucking takes it from a store, but you know, that's its own thing. He's just in the distance in the background, and it's nice. You know how in the first film when he gets killed by Laurie and then he sits back up again, and you just have the piano going bing, and you just like suddenly you're just like, oh shit, get the fuck out of it, you know, stuff like that, because it's a horror film, of course. But then you've got in this one, you've got so many times where like this is like in the third act mostly, where they're just in a house and he's just in the house with them, and he will just pop up, like you just see his mask just in the fucking tiniest part of the frame, and if you don't see it, you don't see it. But then like they have like, I think they have a small sound effect in that particular part, and that's when I realized, oh shit, he's in the background. And it was kind of amusing. Like, it's actually kind of fun that he's just fucking in the background until the movie's like, okay, cool, we're in the last act, kill everyone. Just fucking kill everyone. So let's continue with the review, talk about Loomis. So Loomis, having survived the explosion at the end of Halloween 2, comes after Michael in an attempt to save Jamie. Loomis has the only good and effective jump scare in the whole film. Do I write down, I don't even say. So there's a part in the film where Jamie has just jumped off the roof of the house that she was meant to be secured in. She runs away, and then while she's walking, you just kind of see arms popping at the side of the screen, and then he grabs her and pulls himself into the screen, and you get this BAM! And suddenly you get this big loud jump scary noise, and it's just like, they actually jumped me. I was like, what the fuck are you doing, Loomis, you crazy fucking asshole? But yeah, so that was kind of fun. The rest is pretty simple. When Michael pops up, and when will Michael pop up and attack versus let's see what everyone else is up to, because it's again like the first film. You're getting to know the characters, you're getting to experience their lives and whatever, and how they're connected and all this kind of shit. And it's not bad, even the exposition about like, oh, he killed all these people and stuff. It's like, it's not too over the top. It seems very appropriate for an 80s slasher sequel. Of course, I've watched all the fucking Jason films and the Friday films of course they're going to use exposition to explain what happened in the previous ones. Whether it be a voiceover, or it be one of the main characters giving some exposition, maybe it's someone else who's like, oh, I studied all this stuff and this is what happened and all this kind of jazz. You know, I don't mind it. As long as it's not too tedious and not the same thing over and over again, I don't mind. Sometimes they'll have 3 different characters tell you over the period of the film as to what happened in the first film, or the first and second film in this case. And it's like, okay, cool. Thanks. Sure. Yeah, the final 30 minutes is set in the house where Michael picks off characters one by one while Jamie and her sister, because again, she kind of has a stepsister. It is a stepsister, but again, I don't know how the hell they're really related, doesn't matter. And they have to escape, so hence get into the roof and whatever. The film nicely incorporates a remixed version of the Halloween theme, which becomes a common thing throughout the rest of the franchise. Like the second film, it was very obvious that the Halloween theme was composed and played by Carpenter, but I think in my mind he purposely butchered the fuck out of it because he didn't want anything to do with this film. You can also tell that by the screenplay, so that's fair enough. That makes sense. This one, it's credited as John Carpenter did the Halloween theme, but of course, it's just them taking the theme from the first film and someone else kind of remixing it a little. And I don't mind that. It's not bad. It's not as terrible as the second film. It's just it just feels like a remix version, which again, every Halloween film has done since, including 2018. So yeah, the Halloween 3 was the only film, at least to my knowledge, that doesn't use the original Halloween theme, and the only, they use original music for that film, and again, that's still done by John Carpenter. The only difference for that film is that the only time they use the original theme is when they're watching Halloween on the TV. But yeah, in incorporation of the theme, there is a part where it feels a little overplayed, because again, it's the same notes over and over and over again, and sometimes there are parts where they make it more dreadful, like dun, dun. And so this is just after she's jumped off the roof, and her sister has fallen off the roof, being pushed, but then grabbed onto the railing and fallen off. And you think she may be dead, and it's like, oh shit, the best character has just died. She's practically the main character, even though Jamie is the teenage, her sister pretty much is. I don't even know the name for her sister. I guess it doesn't matter. And then Jamie runs away, and they start playing the Halloween theme again. I'm like, what? But why? I know Michael's chasing her and whatever, but it's like, they should have left it in silence to be to really linger in the moment that she's probably dead, and then Jamie's running away, but then you go back to her and the sister, and you find out, no, she's still alive. She just kind of rolls over. She's obviously just kind of unconscious to a degree, and then the Halloween theme can start playing again, because it's like, well, Michael's still alive, and he's coming for this girl. I don't really know what the reception is to the actress who played Jamie. I've heard good things. I don't think I've heard bad things. Or at least I definitely haven't when doing this review. I thought she was fine in the role. She's definitely much better in this film than the next film, that's for sure. I've heard people say that she's better in the next film, but it's she kind of is, but I think she's more talented as an actor in the second film, but I think she's annoying as hell in the second film. This one, I like her in it. She's not bad, She's, again, a kid actor, so that's why they rely strongly on the teenage aspect, which I think is a better idea. Again, they're still trying to go with that kind of, Laurie Strode kind of thing with, oh, it's the older sister kind of deal and whatever, except that, of course, Laurie wasn't an older sister. And I do like that element to it, how they focus on her. It's kind of like the film is bipartisan, the fact that oh yeah, no, Jamie's the main character, but it's actually this girl over here because she's much more interesting. And she has other character relationships and dynamics and shit, and it actually is interesting. And she's a good character, and I actually gave a shit about her. So again, when she fell off the roof, I'm like, oh no, they've killed her off. I felt bad about it. I felt like she was dead, and then she wasn't. Thank God, for once I actually had a sigh of relief about a character not dying in the film. So, yes. Also, yes, rednecks. They have redneck characters who hunt Michael Myers because one of them in particular, their kid was killed by Michael Myers, 10 years previous. And I actually like how they're it's not just rednecks getting guns, let's go kill the mass murderer. It's the serial killer. It's no, actually, the leader of the group had lost his son to this serial killer, so of course he wants revenge, and it's kind of fun what they get up to, like, the idea of them being there, going around, you know, hunting down Michael throughout the town. It's a nice idea, and they only really have 2 scenes of incorporation of them. One where they accidentally kill a kid. Well, shit, you know, it kind of proves the sheriff's point of, like, oh, that we don't need the help because they'll only make things worse. Arguably, they do, but then they get their comeuppance later when they all get fucking... They get killed. Which was disappointing, because it's like, come on, imagine that, rednecks killing fucking Michael Myers? Nope, we gotta get the state troopers to do it. Damn, that sucks. So, yeah, it was a nice idea. I think overall kind of a waste, because again, that whole revenge subplot could have been nicely played out, but no, it wasn't. Also, I like the idea that, you know, anyone could be dressing up as Michael Myers. Again, the mask and everything was at a Halloween store, and suddenly there was one scene, doesn't last too long, but it's a nice idea, where there were 3 different people, like Loomis and the sheriff finally find Jamie and her sister just wandering the streets. They get them in the car, but then they realize, like, you know, the sheriff's like, wait, shit, is that Michael? Because it's, you know, someone who looks like Michael Myers, and Loomis grabs his gun. But then he turns around and he sees another one, and then the sheriff looks to his left and sees another one. There's 3 of them, and he's suddenly like, oh no, these are people pulling a prank. And then Loomis goes to fire, and one of them takes off his mask, oh no, it's just a prank, ha! And then they all run away and whatever to spook. He's like, well, just pranking the spooky and whatever. And then they're all like, yeah, you bunch of teenagers, get off my lawn. So Loomis gets back in the car. They drive off, but of course, nope, when the camera turns around, boom, Michael Myers was there the whole time on the road. Which was kind of predictable, and I don't like that they did that. It's like, great. Guess rear view mirrors don't fucking exist. So yes, again, I like the idea of the people dressed up as Michael Myers, and there potentially being a comeuppance about it, but no. If the film was probably written better, they could have incorporated that with the hillbillies and, like, the kids running away, and maybe one of those kids gets killed off instead because he's wearing the Michael Myers mask. Or maybe he's taken off, but he's carrying his hand and like, look, he's Michael Myers. And then the kid's like, what? No. And then they shoot him because, you know, to prove the sheriff's point that they're a bunch of fucking low-life idiots, drunks and whatever. So that could have been an interesting thing. And then, of course, this whole remorseful aspect. But instead, they just kill a kid off who is never shown on screen. It says they just see rustling in the bush, shoot like crazy, go up and they're like, oh no, that's that kid. You never see anyone. And then they just find it on the radio, and it's just an excuse for the sheriff to leave the house later in the movie when he's meant to be protecting Jamie, because he's like, I need to, you know, help bring order because I'm the sheriff, and every other cop except for the other guy upstairs is dead. So, yeah. Let's talk about Michael. He's kind of strange in this movie. Like, how Loomis is the crazy old man with a tortured past, Michael just seems distant, as if because Laurie is dead, his purpose has kind of withered. You know, in the first 2 films, he at least had a presence that was undeniably throughout the whole film, and I think that was also because of the breathing. They don't do the breathing in this movie. Like, come on, it's like his most iconic character trait outside of killing people with mostly a knife, and the outfit is the fact, and the fact he doesn't talk, is that he breathes, and it's a breathing in the mask, and it's spooky scary, and it's like, they don't do that in this film. I don't even think they do it in the next film. They do it partially, okay, they do it partially in this next film, but not too often, and it just becomes worthless by the end of it. Like, the effect of it is just like null and void. And I think they do it partially in Curse of Michael Myers, but again, not to any significant amount. So even with the knowledge that Michael, you know, has a niece that he can kill, it doesn't really change his momentum, but more just allows him to kind of just shift through the shadows, preparing for another murder spree. So, like, it feels like he's there as an excuse. Like, this whole movie is an excuse to bring him back. Which, of course, it is. But at the same time, it literally feels like just the way Michael is performed, the way his character exists in the film. Again, I like his distance aspect, like from the first film. But at the same time, it's like he just feels like he's not actually there, or that he doesn't want to be there, which is very strange. I don't know if anyone else kind of feels that way about his character in this film, but that's just how I think about it, at least. So, of course, I should say that notably, you know, his mask is stolen from a Halloween store, which is Weird, even though, of course, it explains the bootleg nature because they can't use the mask from the first two films. Mostly because I'm very sure Nick Castle, the original shape, took the mask and kept it because he was allowed to, and in the second film they had to make a new mask, and in the third film they're like, let's make a new mask again. But of course, as I mentioned here, near the end of the film, for me, I said that they had maybe lost the mask during production, and then, suddenly they had a new mask which had blonde hair, and so there's one scene where in the school, Michael Myers has blonde hair and just throws Loomis through a door, but then when he goes after Jamie, he's got black hair again, and his mask is the same. It's actually that they had shot that as one of the first scenes to test the mask out to see if it worked, and that was the only scene of it that they actually kept because Loomis is maybe old and they don't want to throw him through a fucking door again. Great idea. Let's show him from that one scene where we actually need to use a physical prop that gets destroyed by a human being, and stunt work and all that stuff. Look, it's bizarre. They don't obviously mention it in the film at all. He just has blonde hair. So I think the idea was that they bought a mask and it had blonde hair, and they wanted to see if that would work, but they realized even through editing it didn't work, so they cut all of it out except for that one scene because they didn't want to reshoot it, or they didn't have the budget to reshoot it, and they dyed the hair and amplified the mask to make it seem better to some degree. So it's very strange, but kind of makes this film more unique in a way because of that kind of bizarre nature. I think that I noted here too about the breathing. I think that arguably they didn't want to go with that route of the breathing this time because they wanted to be more subtle about his appearance. But I think, to be honest, the breathing should have been necessary. Yeah, it's cool when he pops up just randomly, in the distance, in the shadows and stuff. But they did that in the first film, and in the first film, and even in the first film, they still had the breathing during those scenes because he's present. Maybe is he actually present, or is he just kind of this shadow, just kind of this specter? And that kind of that built his character more into this kind of phantom-like creature that would just kind of come out of the darkness and stab you to death, or choke you to death, or whatever the fuck to you to death, So it's kind of disappointing that they didn't utilize that. And again, I think it was a key thing for his character, which again, I'm very sure they brought back for the 2018 version. At least I'm pretty sure they did. I can't remember because it doesn't seem because this film they didn't use it. It stood out to me, but in 2018 I'm very sure they did use it, and that's why it was obvious that they had it there, and it didn't pass my mind that it was it just seems like a natural thing for that kind of film. Whereas Halloween 2, they changed the audio recording of it, so it was the guy that was actually genuinely breathing in his mask and stuff, and it was kind of just weird. Anyway. Let's talk about the gore in this film. This film has some good practical gore and gore effects that supersede the second film in both effect and use of necessity. I liked it a lot. That's my whole thing. That's all I can say. Didn't care much for the second film's use of gore and blood. I thought it was just an excuse. This film, I actually liked it. It was fun, and it was well done, especially when that guy gets his head ripped off. Anyway, use of darkness. The film has a nice use of darkness and an overall nice use of cinematography. It's not a visual masterpiece, however, it's effectively shot and for a visual horror mood. Now let's talk about the ending. This unique ending comes when they blast Michael with 1,000,000 shotguns into a well or back down to hell, as Loomis claims. But of course, something new comes about when Jamie proceeds to kill her mother, stepmother, in a nice homage to the original scene from the first film when, of course, Michael kills his sister. And, of course, to Loomis and everyone else's horror. The way Loomis acts in this scene is incredible. I actually really liked it. So Jamie, of course, has become the next embodiment of evil. And that's a really cool way to end the film. I really liked that. It was quite unique. So, of course, I gave this film 3 out of 5 stars. Now, let's talk about Halloween 2, 1632, 1005. Number 5. Whoa, I'm here. Cool. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm just still filming. So, where are we at? Halloween fave. The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. Yeah, they did this the year after, and it shows. This film is directed and also co-written by Dominique Othenin-Girard. Or if you want to be blatantly bullshitting about it, Dominique Othenin-Girard. Fucked if I know how to pronounce these people's names. My quote: "What am I doing? I hate cats." This movie isn't very good. My initial review: this film is boring. I know I've seen Scott Pilgrim a lot, so yeah. Funny thing is, I have actually written that for a lot of slasher films as a review, that this film is boring, which is really just not great. It's funny, like, you know, the amount of times I've had to say that, but at the same time it's like, Jesus Christ. So let's talk about the plot. Who cares? Fuck it. Michael's back and he comes after everyone related to Jamie. Jamie has a psychic connection to Michael, so she sees kind of what he sees. It's kind of vague, but it's pretty obvious at the same time. Loomis is a crazy old man, and we have to save characters that are not interesting. Oh my god, is this film boring. Yeah, so Michael survives in a retcon, kind of. It is still a retcon. Pretty much when they blasted him down the well, they ended up throwing dynamite down there as well to blow it up, because extra explosions to make it feel more interesting, because they're recapping what happened at the end of the previous film a year beforehand. He crawls down a tunnel, comes out of a drain, goes down the water, finds a house, and then the old man helps him out. And then a year later, you know, he's just sitting there on his bed, you know, no mask on, as if he's just woken up a year later and as if nothing has happened. It's very bizarre, because it's like, obviously the old man has probably treated him for this past year, but yeah, I guess not, because Michael just gets up, puts on his mask. He doesn't even tuck it into his shirt, which is the most, it's the most annoying thing in the film, that he does not tuck in the fucking mask in the whole entire film. It's like the films are getting less and less like, this is the actual Michael Myers and it's just some fucking doofus in a costume. And he just kills the old man and walks away. Like, wow, is this meant to be a reference to Frankenstein? Because my god, it's not a good reference to Frankenstein. Anyway, so yes, of course, the whole Jamie kills her stepmother is retconned as, no, she just, you know, brutally harmed her mother because she kind of had a bit of an episode, I guess. They don't really explain it, they just kind of wing it. So now she's in a mental institute in a way that's for, you know, for young adults and for children and whatever. But her friends and family can still visit her, and they reference the fact that the mum is still alive a lot, just to reinforce the fact that, you know, what you saw wasn't... Like, they even showed the scene of her stabbing the mum in the bathtub, so it's like, that wasn't in the end of the previous film, so obviously they either shot that or they incorporated it into this film because they'd shot it into the previous one, but maybe they wanted to make sure the rating wasn't too gory or whatever. And my expectation was that, because at the end of the previous film the mother says, let's take you up to bed, instead she makes her a bath. Which is very interesting, because obviously that's the setup for this scene, even though realistically she could have just been making Jamie's bed and then she comes in and stabs the mother with scissors. Either way, that could have been, like, I was expecting them to just be like, oh yeah, Jamie was just dreaming, because of course Jamie actually witnesses all this stuff of her, you know, you get the first person perspective, you get the additional shot of her stabbing the mum, and then she wakes up screaming, but not really screaming because she's kind of mute now, as if it's been so traumatic to her that she can hardly talk. And it's just, that was just a dream, but it was actually what happened. So it did happen, she did stab her mother, but she was dreaming that part for the exposition for the audience. So my expectation was that it was just going to be a dream, and that she wakes up and it's all good, everything's fine, it's just a year later. Michael's scary still, kind of. But now she has a psychic connection, so whenever he goes and kills someone or goes after someone, she goes like, and Loomis is like, tell me who the fuck is, where the fuck is she, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Loomis is a fucking moron in this film. I'm going to talk about Loomis. Loomis, dude, is fucking crazy in this film. Like, oh my god. Basically, all he does is yell at people and abuse Jamie, and it's really kind of, he's the fucking villain in this film. Outside of the fact that in the previous film, he has a burn mark on his face, which is like, oh, he survived the explosion. With a tiny burn mark. It's practically gone now. It's especially gone in the next film. It's just not there at all, which is just hilarious. They just didn't give a shit. It kind of deteriorated over the period of the previous film. But yeah, I feel like I should mention how Loomis was kind of an action hero in the previous one. Like when Michael blows up the mechanic's place and Loomis jumps into the barrels and whatever. Like, I liked the craziness of his character in the previous film. It's like, it really shows that he's kind of psychological deterioration. It's very obvious, how this past 10 years has affected him, especially because he still has to treat Michael. But then this one, he's just a fucking crazy old man. And no offense to Donald Pleasance, I did not like his performance in this film. I did not like the way they portrayed his character in this film. I've liked his performance so far. He was still kind of crazy in the second film, but I didn't mind that. He was more bloodthirsty. Whereas in the fourth one, he's still crazy, but he seems like he's just kind of haunted from the past. And now this one, he's just crazy and just expects answers all the fucking time because he can't do anything himself. So it's over the top in the worst of ways. So let's talk about Michael. This film makes Michael in the daylight look really dumb and cheesy, which kind of sucks because that's like one of the best appeals of the character, that like during the daytime he's hunting and stalking. It's like, that's like one of the main fears from the first film. And not exactly the second film, because the second film takes place completely at night, but in the fourth film as well, it's still reincorporated. But in this film, they do it again, and because his mask especially, he's just kind of out, and it just looks so dumb, and he looks so dumb. He just goes around just, oh, you're dead. Oh, you're dead. He's becoming like one of the worst slasher films I've ever seen. Like, Chucky is more impressive than fucking Michael Myers by this stage. But at the same time, I think actually Chucky has more to him than this, because let's be honest, Chucky's a lot more fun than Michael Myers is. At least that's how I see it, because at least in every film he does something different, whereas Michael Myers is just going around, killing people. That's about it. Doesn't have much to him, and he loses his character after the second film, pretty much. So Michael Myers has, in my mind, lost his whole ability to be horrifying during the nighttime, during the daytime, during the time when he's killing someone or hunting them. Just not scary at all anymore. Also, yeah, again, can't put on his mask properly. And now, I wrote a particular part. He's chasing people in a car and trying to run them over, which is like the lamest way for Michael Myers to kill someone, to just run over them in a car. He doesn't even succeed, but nevertheless, it's just fucking lame. So, let's talk about the kills, I guess. By the time our protagonist from the first film, Jamie's stepsister, gets killed, the best character gets killed in the first 20 minutes of this film. But no. First we have to have a shower, and we kind of see her butt because she's wearing just a long shirt and underpants. So we're going to over-sexualize the character, and then Michael's just going to stab her in the side. That'll be the end of it. We won't mention her again until the end of the film, when we reveal she was in the attic the whole time. Pull on a psycho. But yeah, no, once she died, I was just like, oh, great. The only interesting character, because, Jamie's been reduced to a mute who has seizures because she sees what Michael Myers sees, which is just fucking ridiculous as it is. Like, my god, this is... What was that Jason film? It's The New Beginning, I think it was, where there's a character who had psychic abilities. Oh, mother of God. Like, there's a lot of comparisons to those Jason films with, like, the final chapter and New Beginning compared to this one and the previous one. And the next one in a kind of way. But yeah, it's not for me to get into, but that's yeah, at the same time, it's just a thing. So yeah, the film unravels a mess of teenagers we don't care about getting killed. Jamie, also more sex in this one, of course. We even get boobies again, because the previous one we only had a woman in a bra. And now we actually get boobies. I didn't even realize that there were nipples on screen. I'm like, oh, there are nipples on screen. Cool. And it's kind of, and then there's a sex scene, I think. Yeah. I don't know, it's awkward and painful to watch. So yes, Jamie has seizures because she now is retconned to have psychic link to Myers, because I guess she touched his hand and woo, spooky stuff. Loomis has evolved into a crazy and kind of creepy old man. This is not a good sequel. It wastes its unique ending of the previous film and just becomes a blehfest. I gave it 1 star. It's just fucking terrible. It is so far, in my mind, the worst of the franchise. But I'm yet to see if Resurrection changes that, so stay tuned to the next video to find out that. But now we're going to talk about Halloween 666. Halloween 666. Let's jump to another point of view because we're trapped in the one room. Whoa, it's like magic. This isn't a dance, fuck off. Alright, now we're on the opposite side. Cool. I'm gonna stand here. Boom. Fantastic. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, is a 1995 film. It's also known as Halloween 6, or The Curse of Michael Myers, or Halloween 666, because of stuff. It is directed by Joe Chappelle. My quote, Michael Myers in space, come on. I think that was a reference to Jason X, but I don't even think Jason X had come out by this stage. So I was like, maybe? I can't remember when Jason X came out. Either way, that's just kind of funny that they just pulled that out of their ass. So yeah, it's just kind of funny they just kind of pulled that out of their ass. It was just a thing that they said on the radio in the movie. I just like found it really kind of amusing. So again, there you quote. This is when the movies were now produced by Miramax, so hence why the Halloween collection DVD set I have of Halloween H2 and Resurrection are together, because they're the only films done by Miramax. So my initial review is, you know a franchise has gone too far when it's forced to explain its villain, but in the least interesting way possible, through magic and cults. Look, this is the thing that can be terrible when your franchise gets so overdrawn that you have to explain every single background detail to a character. They've done this in the Chucky films, but that was in a weird kind of retcon. They've done it in the I don't think they did in Friday the 13th. No, they just kept bringing Jason back and killing people off because it was fun. Yeah, okay, cool. They had all the backstory in the fucking first film. So, you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street did this as well. Nightmare on Elm Street did it to a more effective level, I think. There's also a franchise, the Alien franchise, the prequels, I think did it really interestingly as well. That was a kind of, hey, let's introduce this kind of thing to expand upon the universe, and I think it was actually really effective. This film, on the other hand, is kind of, it's not terrible. Yeah. So, just to note, I reviewed the theatrical cut because it's the only version that comes with my collection, and not the producer's cut. Maybe someday I will watch the producer's cut, but I kind of read up on what the differences were to some degree, and it's nothing I'm going to really note here because I haven't seen it. I can't really openly, verbatim, explain the differences, so I'm certain someone else who's much better at talking about these Halloween films than me has that somewhere else. But I just read a review about it on Letterboxd, this guy saying which one he preferred. And again, it's that kind of thing of like, some people preferred the producer's cut because it's got a more concise story and a better ending. But of course, that's just in terms of the narrative, not in terms of the actual effect of the ending. It's kind of more apparently boring in a way. But this film is, I don't think this film is too messy. Like, yeah, it's messy, but it's still concise enough. It's just that the ending is kind of barbaric. So we'll get into that. So let's talk about the plot. So mix Halloween, the original, with Rosemary's Baby and, have a nod to The Shining, and boom, baby, here's a weird, messy, but kind of interesting addition to the canon. So Jamie from the previous film gives birth because this is this is 7 years later, so yeah, 1989, 1995, 6 years later in reality, but it's 7 years later in the movies. So again, Jamie is now, maybe a late teenager to her early 20s, and she gives birth, and then is killed by Michael in a really brutal way. It's kind of like, wow, okay, shit, Miramax, I get it, you got a budget to fucking kill people with, but bloody hell. Anyway, then Paul Rudd, in his first movie appearance, I think his name is like Paul Stephen Rudd in the movie, like they did that whole free name thing kind of deal. He is playing the character of Tommy Doyle from the original film, who was babysit by Laurie Strode, and of course attacked by Michael Myers, and this has psychologically damaged him now. Finds the baby, and Loomis, conveniently, who was in retirement, and again, no burn marks, just kind of a nice old man now. It's a funny thing what age does to you. And he just kind of, he's just kind of brought onto the case again. Like this doctor was like, hey, Loomis, we're good old buddies. I want you to come back. Do the medical stuff. It'd be great. It's like, but I'm retired. What are you doing? Leave me alone. I'm old. And so, of course, then he runs into Paul Rudd, who has a baby, And Paul Rudd's like, Dr. Loomis, I know you. Because, of course, he obviously encountered him, 15, 20 years ago or whatever. So that was interesting. And then, of course, Michael comes to Haddonfield for the baby, but also to kill the Strode family, because they're, again, the adoptive family of Laurie. Laurie? Yeah. Because, they're back. They're her cousins who have moved into the old Michael Myers house because the father, who works in real estate, couldn't sell it, so he decided to buy it instead and move his family into it, but not tell them about the fact that the place is fucked. And it's just kind of amusing because you've got the father and the husband and wife. The husband's a fucking abusive dick who has a great death scene, by the way. Just the whole electrocution and explosion. It's great. Totally the best fucking kill in the franchise, because it shows just how over top this franchise has become, and it's like, I don't really mind. It was pretty cool, and kind of not as deserving as I think. Like, I feel like there should be more, really stick it to him, but it's like, I don't know, dude gets stabbed in the chest and then electrocuted until he blows up. I guess it's kind of retribution for him being an abusive dick to his wife and daughter, who is kind of the main character, with her bastard child, as the father, her father argues and whatever. But she also has a sister, and a sister. Is it a sister? I think it's a sister. Yeah, maybe, and a brother. I don't think she has a sister. Maybe the girl was the brother's girlfriend. I don't know. It's too many fucking characters in this. There's a lot of characters in this movie. It's kind of distracting. So also there's the Cult of Thorns, which is referenced in the previous film to some degree, of the man in black who goes around and then breaks Michael out of prison at the end of the film. Which again, the movie just kind of ends on Jamie just kind of crying, because it's like, oh no, Michael's been broken out of prison by someone, and they never explain it. And obviously, even the writers admitted that they had no idea what the hell was going to happen. They just were like, let's just do something and hope for the best. So in this film, they're like, okay, let's answer what happened. Where did Michael go? And all this kind of stuff. And they don't even really answer it. They just kind of say, like, the Cult of Thorns, which again, Paul Rudd has to explain to the main female character. That like, oh yeah, so pretty much it's like, this is a thing, like the star sign that see only when Halloween arrives, and pretty much the whole idea of the cult, which is a weird thing as it is that they've given Michael immortality because they understand that he is the embodiment of pure evil, but they are also just scientists and doctors. It's so bizarre. So that's its own thing. The film plays out with a tie-up of the previous film, then pretty much recreating the original film in the second act. Because again, the first half an hour of this film is, okay, got to get the Jamie stuff out of the way, kill her off, whatever. Then we got to introduce our new characters, get the baby and whatever. Have Michael come back because he's gonna kill off Jamie, and then he's gonna go back to Haddonfield because he's going to go after the baby, because apparently he wants the baby, but we don't know why the fuck he wants the baby, because he can't fucking talk. But then now he wants the Strode's kid, the kid who's like almost demented in his own way, like, who other characters point out is like, oh, he's very similar to when Michael was a kid. It's like, isn't that a little bit concerning that this kid is kind of similar to Michael Myers as a kid? Like, he doesn't have a sister to go around stabbing to death, but at the same time, does have family members that he could go around stabbing to death, and he almost does. He almost kills the father. He's like grandfather, pretty much, because the grandfather was an abusive piece of shit. The second act, pretty much a recreation of the first film. Everyone's hanging out doing all the Halloween stuff and whatever the crap. And again, there are too many characters to note, so I'm just going to bypass all of that and just focus on what I wrote. The final act is they go to the laboratory slash mental hospital kind of thing, where Paul Rudd and the main female character run from Michael and rescue her son and Jamie's baby from a cult until Paul Rudd has to beat up Michael Myers. First, he stabs him with like 6 to 7 big ass needles of green stuff that they never explain what it is, and then Paul Rudd gets a big pipe and just beats the crap out of Michael Myers, and then he's just like, yeah, just as with all these weird cuts of him beating him up, and then he just decides he throws the pipe down. He's like, yeah, and he just walks away as if I have killed Michael Myers, or at least I have beaten Michael Myers. I'm gonna leave now. Yeah, and not to mention the fact that once they take the baby and stuff, like they're waiting in the room with the baby and the kid, but they can't get to the kid not because they know that Michael Myers is stalking him in the hallways. But then Paul Rudd goes over to the window, the other window, which is a door, and suddenly he just sees all of the all the people in the cult getting killed by Michael Myers, which again, they don't explain why he does this. He just kind of just goes in there with a knife and starts fucking killing everyone for no reason. Maybe just because they're like, oh, we've run out of time. Fuck them, kill them off. Let's get the baby and the kid out of there. Then Paul Rudd can face off against Michael Myers. Then when he leaves, they say goodbye to Loomis, who stays behind, who says that he has unfinished business. The other two drive off. Loomis turns around, walks towards the building. Then you cut to a scene, you got the chains, you go down to the ground, you got the Michael Myers mask on the floor, and you hear Loomis screaming in the background, some kind of knife slashing sound effects, and then it cuts to a house where you walk up to the front porch of a house which has a jack-o'-lantern, and the candle blows out, and it says, in memory of Donald Pleasance. And it's a weird thing, because I know that during the production of the film, Donald Pleasance did pass away. So, of course, hence the really absurdly just done ending, arguably interpretively on my part. I'm like, well, I guess Loomis went back to face Michael Myers and just got fucking killed, and that's the end of it. What can I say about Michael? The narrative is bonkers, and apparently, like, the producers cut, outside of adding a lot of extra scenes to be able to, answer and expand upon characters and plot points and subplots and all this stuff in the first two acts. In the final act, they've completely redone it so that I think what the guy was saying was that Paul Rudd's character uses magic to fight Michael Myers and to beat him and to win to some degree, and then they get out of there. So yeah, it's really fucking weird, and I'd like to watch the producer's cut someday. Eventually I'll get around to buying it and watching it, but right now I'm kind of wanting to save money because I don't think buying another version of Halloween 7 is really worth my money. So yes, let's talk about Michael. I love how they make you believe that he's, a lackey for a cult until he just goes ahead and kills the cult. Good stuff. Also, he breathes scary again. It's good. It's like the original film. It feels like more of a callback to the original film, but it's still just nice that they do that. It still doesn't feel authentically him, but at the same time, he hasn't felt authentically him since the fourth film. And even then, he didn't really feel authentically him. So he hasn't felt authentic since the second film. And even then he could bleed, so it's like, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. Loomis, of course, rest in peace to Donald Pleasance. It's been a bloody long time, though, over 20 years, actually, I think. Yeah, almost 30 years. 25 years? Jesus. Still. Look, I mad respect for the actor. He's pretty fun in this film, to be honest. Like, he's just kind of nice and subtle in this film, He obviously can't do the over-the-top crazy bullshit that he did in the previous two films, but I kind of like that he's just like an old man. He's just gone through a lot of this shit in his life, and for some reason, he's beckoned back into it because, the Doctor who's the leader of the fucking cult, spoilers, he's like, hey, come back, we'd like to see you to do the medical stuff again. But of course, that's just help us find Michael Myers. So yeah. So of course the theatrical cut gives him a more bizarre, if not kind of a sad way to go. But, you know, you could argue the same thing about this being the potential end to the franchise of the narrative, because this is the end point of one part of the narrative. This is the end point of Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. This is the end of that. All of this gets retconned out when you get to the next film, and you never get a sequel to it. You don't know what happens to the other characters. You don't know what the importance of a lot of things are. It's just gone. It doesn't matter anymore. Paul Rudd. Let's talk about Paul Rudd. He is creepy, but becomes a really welcome addition to the film before too long. Like, he actually becomes a pretty well-realized character, and he's quite fun, you know? So that's really all I can say about that. The edits. Yeah, so also, and it's weird, it's the mid-90s and we don't know what to do with horror films anymore phase. They just add some weird cuts in the film. Like, they do it in this... It's all pretty much set to a blue kind of tone and color. It's only for like 2-3 seconds. It's probably enough to not be, you know, subliminal messaging. And it's just these stabbies, shing, 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 shing. And like, you just got like a few cuts. And it's maybe like a shot of Michael Myers, a shot of a character. Like, I noticed one of them was a shot of Jamie from the start of the film. But it's like, this is like near the end of the film, so I don't know why they incorporated that. It's just random moments from the film, just cut in, no audio or anything except for just the knife slashing. It's just an intended jump scare. And it's really distracting. Because like, they do it a lot in maybe the first half an hour to 45 minutes. And again, all these films are still pretty much 90 minutes, you know, 90 to 100 minutes, which is not bad, you know. It makes it easy to watch these horror films and digest them, which is also nice to binge them, because I binged all 3 of these last night. And yeah, it's just bizarre that they do this so often. Yeah, and they do it, I think, for some kind of a jump scary value, because there's like one scene where it's like, oh, they've been, like, the producers were probably like, they've been talking for too long, quick, add that jumpy cutty thing to scare audiences. But even me, someone who, I mean, I wasn't expecting it, and then they just did it, I'm just like, okay, cool, that's a thing, you know. It wasn't even oh, what the hell, oh, that was spooky, oh, that really scared me. It's like, I mean, look, slasher films don't scare me anyway, but Jesus Christ, Donald Pleasance is scarier than these goddamn fucking weird cut-ins. Overall, not a terrible entry in the franchise, and definitely not the worst. But it's an interesting film, given, you know, what it's going for. Like, everything that's happening in this film is batshit insane, and it's one of my colleagues' favorite films in the franchise. And it is another one of the cult favorites alongside Halloween 4. I think Halloween 4 is a better film just because it's a bit tighter in pacing, and in terms of, you know, what it's going for. It's not too fucking crazy. It doesn't have too many characters. Even if it kills off all those characters, it doesn't have too many of them, so it doesn't become too distracted by its own nature. But yeah, it's worth a watch for any diehard fan, but for the casual viewer who really should only stick to Halloween, Halloween 2, and maybe Halloween 3 if you really want to do that, I would suggest it wholeheartedly, but definitely Halloween 2018. I would not go into watching Halloween 4, 5, and 6, and probably not H2O and Resurrection. It's probably not worth a casual viewer's time. Again, this is just my opinion. Unless you're like maybe a slasher fan, or you really like horror or slasher films, or you just, again, you just want to know what this franchise is like, then of course you want to experience all the films, like myself. So I gave this film 2.5 stars. I did actually end up noting how, like, you know, in this film the guy's head explodes and whatever the crap, but look, I'm fucking tired. Assuming in the next 48 hours I will probably watch Halloween, H2O, and Resurrection. I'll write down my reviews, do a better written review of the Rob Zombie films, and I'll film that over the course of the next couple of days. But for the most part, that'll come out very soon. Of course, feel free to... obviously, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. You can check out the previous Halloween one, probably up here, and the playlist of the Calm and Relaxed, where, again, I've talked about Chucky, I've talked about Alien, I've talked about Fast and Furious, the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street. It's an ever-evolving playlist of films or videos where I talk about a franchise or selection of, you know, a fucking big-ass body of films. Usually the action or horror, because of course Calm and Relaxed is kind of the opposite, so I kind of think that works pretty well. yeah. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned in the next couple of days, maybe, for the third part. Uh, there's just too many goddamn films, and I don't want to be making a 6 hour long video just for about this one franchise. So yes, I did like how with some of the Chucky films and the Friday the 13th, and I don't know about the Friday the 13th, but definitely not like Nightmare on Elm Street. I wanted to go more into the behind the scenes stuff. There's nothing on any of these discs except for like the original Halloween and Halloween 2018 one, and I didn't even go into the behind the scenes of that because, yeah, I knew some details but didn't really care much for the rest. But these three films had no special features outside of a big panel for the fourth and fifth film, and I'm not going to spend an hour watching people just kind of talk about the film. It doesn't really work for me. So yeah, I think I actually watched stuff for Halloween 3, and one of the producers was saying, I didn't like Halloween 3 because Michael Myers wasn't there, and because of it I didn't get enough money. I was like, oh shit, I wonder where the rest of this franchise is going to go. So yeah, again, thanks for watching. See you next time. Adios.